Now, TTL and scavenging are two words that you're going to hear and probably see on the exam. And this has to do with DNS, and I just want to take you through this. It'll just take a couple of minutes here. But first of all, let's talk about TTL and what it is. TTL means time to live. Now, what it is can best be described as a lifetime for a DNS record. So anytime something is entered into DNS, let's say that DHCP assigns an IP address that gets dynamically entered into DNS, and a time to live is assigned to it. What that can be used for then is to be able to keep our DNS records up to date and clean. So if the time to live finally reaches 0, then the record can be removed from the DNS records. And this prevents our DNS records from becoming this just big cluttered database of useless information. Now, scavenging is the way that record gets removed. Scavenging is the process that DNS, Windows Server DNS, uses to actually go erase those old records out. Now, what's interesting though is, and you need to be aware of this for the exam, scavenging is not turned on by default in DNS. So let's go out and take a look at DNS and see how to use this. So what I'm going to do here is I'll just click on Start, and I'll go out to Administrative Tools, and I will go into the DNS tool. And I'll show you first of all a little, not a really trick, but just a way to see this. If I right click on my DNS server, I'll left click first, and if I right click, you will notice I can set aging and scavenging for all zones on the server. And this is going to do it one time for everybody. Now notice Scavenge stale resource records is not checked, so I have to check that to turn it on. Then this is saying the time between the most recent refresh of a record and the moment when the timestamp may be refreshed again is 7 days, and then the refresh interval needs to be refreshed within 7 days. But so notice if I want scavenging to happen, I have to turn this on. Now do be aware that if you start scavenging records, you're also going to increase DNS replication if you're not using Active Directory integrated, because you're going to be changing your records. Now that's at the server level. I'll cancel that, and you'll notice if I go out to my zone, my VTC class zone, I can go down to Properties, and notice you can see to set aging scavenging properties, it's right here on the General tab. I can click this, and you see the very same thing, but that's for this particular zone only. Now, if I go to an individual record, like this Mark record right here, and if I right click it and go to Properties, I don't really see anything. Well, to see it on the individual property, what I have to do is go up to the View menu, come down and choose Advanced. Doesn't look like anything happened, but when I right click, go back to Properties, you now see this, and it's saying delete this record when it becomes stale. Stale meaning when time to live equals 0, and then it says, okay, here is the time to live on it. Notice 0 days, 1 hour, no minutes, no seconds. So 1 hour from now, this will become a stale record, and DNS will have to refresh it. As you can see, there's a lot of issues that you're going to have to make some decisions on here about aging and scavenging and so forth. Go back to the server level, and notice I can choose Scavenge stale resource records. If I click this, it's going to ask me, are you sure you want to scavenge all stale records on the server? And if I do that, then records are going to disappear from here, and some items will have to re-request some current DNS records and so forth. So that's kind of the quick run through on TTL and scavenging, just so you know what they are, and just so that you know that by default this is not turned on. Use that information to kind of work your way through some of the questions on the exam. And again, like everything in this whole course, I would strongly advise, if you haven't done much work with DNS, go out and do some reading on it, set it up on a server, and just kind of play with it and get used to the various options and work through a couple of scenarios.